So let's continue on and talk about our journey toward flipping the classroom. We're going to ask a series of questions and we're going to tell you our thoughts while at the same time realizing that you have a lot of these answers already. Let's get started. And let's ask, how will you start? Maybe you want to start with just some simple directions. So this becomes like instead of you explaining things in class on how we're going to do the project or how we're going to write the essay or when the due dates are, things like that, the directions show up outside of class so that when students are in class, you don't have to spend the time doing the directions. You're spending the time doing the doing. And they're doing the project or they're doing the conversation or they're doing whatever it is that they're supposed to be doing at the higher level, at the authentic level. Maybe you want to start with directions. Maybe you want to start by flipping one lesson, right? You don't have to jump in right away. Maybe there's one particular lesson that you really like and you really feel good about, and you want to flip it by putting some of the initial stuff outside of class so that you can spend more time doing it in class. Or maybe there's something that you don't really like. So maybe by doing a little bit of a flip, you can move some of that stuff out of the class and do something that you and students might enjoy more, might find more authentic, more real, and more useful. Maybe there's a particular thing that you want to flip. Maybe there's a certain lesson that makes sense for you. Now, if you're starting from scratch, you might want to consider flipping every other chapter. Now, what if you did that so that this year you could flip every other chapter, and then the ones that you don't flip are next year? This doesn't have to be a 100% do it all right now from the start to the end kind of a thing. Some people would say, well, let's flip every other chapter, and then this becomes a 2 or 3 or 5 year process. Or maybe you're like me when you start and you just are going to jump in 100% from the beginning. I'll tell you right now, it's a lot of work. You can do it, but it's a lot of work. And it's a lot of getting stuff started. Now you'll thank yourself the next year, but that first year is going to be tough. And you might get burned out just a little bit. One of the things that I did with this is I decided that I would flip all but one chapter just to see what would happen and if things had changed in my class. So I unflipped federalism the first year I was flipping, and I went back to lecture and all that kind of good stuff in class, and I found something that I wasn't prepared for. I thought students would still continue to do the high-level thinking and the questioning and the conversation, and it turned out they almost automatically changed back to the way they used to be, sitting in the audience and listening, and I would ask if anybody had questions and they would not answer, and I would ask questions and try to interact, and man, they were back in the audience pretty quick. Luckily, it was a topic that had a bunch of big concepts and we didn't have to spend too much time with it. I might admit, I raced through it so it could get back to the real learning. Oh, and by the way, if you do unflip a chapter, make sure you remember that for the next year, because the following year I started assigning reading and videos and forgot that I hadn't created any videos for that particular chapter. Oops. So let's talk more about videos. Do you need to use videos? Absolutely not. Why? There are some teachers who are not using videos, and they consider the flip to be more of a flipped mindset, and they say that they don't need the videos, or as they move along the process toward flipping 2.0, what they're saying is the videos are there if students need them. But if it's truly differentiated, individualized, and personalized, if the students don't need the videos, why should they have to watch them? So will you use videos? If you use videos, we like to say that there are 3 types of videos. There's the prepackaged ones that somebody's done it for you. You can either buy them or you can find them, and it's all done, it's all packaged. And if you have to do that, then you should do it. But it's not our best recommendation. Sort of like that fast food. Sometimes you just got to drive through the drive-thru and get it and do it, and that's good enough. But sometimes what you can do is you can find good videos and curate them for your students. And we call that the takeout. You take some from this person, some from that source, some from the other person, maybe even include a little bit of your own. But the best thing that you can do, in our opinions, is to make your own videos. Homemade videos are going to be the best for you and your students. You know your students and you know exactly what they need. You also know your content and what exactly you want to deliver to your students and how you want them to hear it. In addition to that, your students know you. They have a relationship with you, and they probably want to hear from you. But as John Bergman and Aaron Sams say, and by the way, you should read their book, do you need it perfect, or do you need it Tuesday? And sometimes you might have to include all of these because you need to get the content to the students outside of class so that they can do the higher level thinking in class. And if you need it by a deadline, then you got to meet that deadline. A couple more ideas about videos. The best practice is that when you're making a video, that you make it short, you make it succinct, and you make it interesting. Another thing that you should consider is 1 minute per each grade level. I had a student once who told me that 17-minute video I made in my first year was way too long. She said it would have been so much better if there were a 10-minute and a 7-minute video. It's the new math.